you know, in his later years, though, even though people didn't agree with a lot of things as he was governor, and he had these, like, the little man on his shoulder, and he had these, like, funny quirks about him that people would just be like, oh my gosh, AIP, you know, he ran over Arliss Sturgeluski. There were all these, and he did. I mean, it's true. And so he goes in. The governorship, he did some remarkable things, but afterwards was really this sort of statesman thing that came about that when I saw him later, I really thought, this is so much bigger than him, it's bigger than the state. He has a vision for everybody.
Yeah, he really does. And that vision is what he calls the owner state. And I think most everybody's heard the term. Does everybody really understand it? No. A lot of people don't understand what he means by the owner state or the commons. And basically what that is the resources in this state, all the resources on state land, are owned basically by the people. And those resources written into our Constitution, Article 8 states that the resources must be used for the maximum benefit of the people. Not for an individual, not for a corrupt government, and not for private corporations, not for the multinational corporations. Those resources belong to you and me and everybody out there. Yeah. And that's what people don't realize. And that's what makes us different. Well, that's what makes the state different than other states, because the resources belong to the people and must be used for the maximum benefit of the people. That's exciting stuff.
It is. It's visionary. It's amazing when you actually look at what we have. But when you look at our leadership for the past however long you want to look back, it's no wonder that people have either forgotten that or not, or have misunderstood it, because it's sort of like, you know, I think in the Simpsons movie, they even had this thing like, welcome to Alaska, here's $1,000. We could do whatever we want. And it's like Exxon at the border, you know, when you're driving into Alaska. And so people kind of have this hostage situation almost, not understanding that, you know, we can't, and I know that was one dream of your dad's, is that, hey, you know what, they're not doing it. It's our stuff anyway, let's just do it ourselves.
That's right, that's right.
And really thought, certainly when Palin came in, that was going to be something that would happen, that we would have a gas line, that we could do that. And I know the FERC permits were shut down this week.
Yep.
It's kind of interesting that came to a close. I know they can reapply, but in the same time.
And I think they probably will reapply, because it really is the best way to go.
It is.
You know, it's the best way to go for Alaska. It's the best way to go for the world, because there's markets. There's markets for it in Asia.
So you've been working in Africa a lot, and your dad really wanted the Sudan to have this vision of an owner state.
Very much.
Tell me about your work there, because you've worked so much in Africa through medicine. You're a medical doctor, certainly through what the native Alaskans hear. But what was that vision there to really? What was the point?
I'll back up a little bit. I lived in Africa for 15 years, raised my family there. Dad and Mom came down to visit 3 times, and we traveled, of course, to Swaziland, South Africa, Mozambique, Zimbabwe, Namibia, Botswana. I took them through a lot of areas just to show them what the situation is really like.
Well, it was an adventure just to get the shots to go on that trip.
It is.
I'm sure.
It is. And I took him to some pretty tough areas in Mozambique. The war had just ended, and I was starting to work over there as well. Took him into a very remote area over there and let them see the situation, of course, in Swaziland and other areas. And of course, he was aware of the poverty in the world, because he's obviously a very international traveler. But when you see it firsthand and you walk into the villages and you see people dying of malnutrition, you know, he became so impassioned that there's a different way to take care of this, that there's a reason why people are starving to death. And it's not because there's no resources, because the resources in Africa are tremendous. Look at the oil in Angola and the oil in the Niger Delta, don't get me on that subject, or in Sudan, the gold, the uranium, the titanium.
Diamonds.
Diamonds. It's an incredibly wealthy continent. but it's the poorest. Why is that happening? And the answer is that resources are being exploited by multinational corporations, individuals, and corrupt governments. And there's a different way of doing things.
How does anyone sit in an apartment in some big city somewhere and know that everything they have is because someone else doesn't have enough to eat? It's vulgar.
It is. Why does my cell phone work?
Yeah.
Why do our computers work? Because we're taking minerals, elements, etc. from some of these countries. It's not that it shouldn't be taken because we need it, but the way it's being taken.
Right.
It's being raped out of these lands, often with no or minimal contractual agreements, which we're not aware of. The corporations are taking huge profits, paying off a few government individuals to keep the corporations there, and the people end up as poor or poorer than before the oil ever came out of the ground.
I think that there is a real distinction about people right now, which is that I hear, well, you know, liberals, they're against development. I'm a liberal. I'm not against development, but if you're going to go in, you know, and take advantage of the land, the people, and take it all away, everything that's good about it, and leave everything that's poisoned about it, that's not development. That's regressive. And so we've got to take a break. I know people have questions for you in our audience, and I'm so glad you're here. We'll be right back. All right. You're cutting into my Dr. Hickel time with your clapping now. All right. I'm very, very happy that Dr. Jack Hickel is here, son of Wally and Ermelie Hickel, and just really, let me just say this in the best way: the apple didn't fall too far from the tree. I mean, you just have this passion that's so, I don't know if it's genetic. If it is, we should, you know, collect DNA and put you in a petri dish. It's really wonderful. I think it's amazing when you meet people that care big. Just care big, and it's not really on them, which we've, you know, you and I both know people that do.
Sure.
Can Sudan become an owner state?
Great question. Yes, it can. I've been working in Sudan with a project, building a hospital in a very remote area, drilling wells, putting in a small farm, et cetera, et cetera. This opened the door. There was a Sudanese going to school in the States that got on my website, heard about what we were doing, flew up here to Alaska, met my dad, met me. We talked about the owner state. Bingo, he loved it. He happened to be the nephew of President Salva Kiir, who's the president of Southern Sudan, and also knows President al-Bashir, the president of Northern Sudan, or Sudan proper. This guy is very well connected. And we sold him on the owner state, and he loves the idea. Now, Sudan, as you know, is a country that is torn right now. They've had 40 years of civil war. The north is mostly Arab. The south is basically African. The oil is in the south. They've been fighting over oil. They're going to fight over oil if things aren't straightened out.
And then there's Darfur in the mix.
Then there's Darfur, and then there's the east, and there's 26 different states. And Southern Sudan has most of the oil. I was invited to Khartoum, which is the capital of the north, last November, and met with some government officials up there, talked to them about the owner state. And at one table I had representatives from Northern Sudan and Southern Sudan sitting at the same table, talking about the owner state, and they loved the idea. I came away with
first thing they've agreed on in 40 years.
You know, it's amazing. It's absolutely amazing. Because they know they're going to be fighting over oil. They've been fighting over oil, and that's one of the main bones of contention right now. The South is going to secede from the North, probably next January. Where's the oil going to go? We don't know. How are they going to distribute it? We don't know. But they like the idea of the owner state so much that I actually have a written memorandum of understanding signed by the Government of National Unity by the North and the South to bring the owner state idea to Sudan. Now, what basically all that means is they want us to come to bring people from the Institute of the North, which my dad founded, which kind of preaches the owner state, to come and teach all the governors and other leaders about how the owner state is set up and what they can do to implement it in their country. The glitch I'm having is because Sudan is still a terrorist state and I'm not supposed to be dealing with the North, I have to get permission from the State Department. So we're trying to get permission from the State Department to have this conference in Sudan. I've talked to General Gratian about it, who's Obama's special envoy to Sudan. He likes the idea. He's doing everything he can for us to get in there and promote it, but we still have to get permission from the State Department. We've got to get licensed to work in northern Sudan. So that's where we're at right now. We would like to, if we can get the license, we're going to go right in there and at the expense of the Government of National Unity, they've already said they're going to pay for it, we'll give a conference to them on how to set it up and give them technical expertise.
This could change the continent.
So it could be really exciting.
I mean, it really could. It could change the continent for them to actually be able to have their resources owned by the people.
That's right.
What are all these questions in my hand? Okay.
Okay.
I'm going to get to those
Okay.
right now. Did Wally